one another, and I always think that's kind of cool.
It is. That means we're making StarCraft history, Roddy. As we're going to kick it off in the top right-hand side with our red Protoss player. He is MCanning.
And in the bottom left side of Jagannatha, we're looking at the main base of that young Canadian Protoss. It's his second season in the DreamHack Masters. This is TriGGeR.
He had a good run last season, you know, for being his first season. I was genuinely impressed with the power at which he came into the tournament.
It was really fun. It was, I guess, last year winter that MCanning had his legendary run, or was that fall last year?
I feel like that might have been fall, because I feel like we had a season after where he didn't do the legendary run again. Everyone was like, no, I thought it was meant to be. So I think it might have been fall, yeah.
That was so sick. Like, whatever he did, he just won, right? Like, one of the recalls on Golden Wall against Scarlet and everything. It felt like it was just this fairy tale that never ended. And you could see, like, the look of disbelief on his own face. And he's like, I'm just winning everything. This is so sick. It was amazing.
It really was. As TriGGeR is down in this group 1 to 2, but I do believe he's played the most difficult players, right? He's lost against Scarlet, and he lost against Estrella. He said he looked pretty okay against Estrella, so I think this is a group from here on out where TriGGeR says, I can probably win or have a very good chance at winning most of the rest of my matches and still make it to the playoffs, because there's not going to be many people that take maps or series off of Estrella and Scarlet.
No, exactly. It was indeed fall last year. I just double-checked it. So yeah, the season afterwards, MCanning went 2-5, and he also made a tweet when he qualified this season, just saying that he was incredibly happy to qualify, because StarCraft 2 is a very hard and competitive game, and I can only echo those sentiments. Like, I think each and every single one of these players that makes it into the main event, they can be proud of it. They may not be Clem, Scarlet, Neep, or Raynor, but just making it into the big leagues is already an achievement by itself, because it really ain't easy.
It is not. These qualifiers are always stacked to the brim. And every season there's a couple people who are like, oh, you didn't make it? And it's like, well, that's really sad, because you deserve to be in DreamHack, but we only have so many slots to give away, Roddy.
I mean, Future, for instance, this year, right? Like, last year, Future was one of the big four when it came to America. It was always Neep, Scarlet, Estrella, and Future. Those were the four that were really supposed to duke it out for the final 4 slots. And now Future didn't even make it, which really does say enough. And they might not be as tough as Europe, but it's still tough, and all of these guys work hard to get to the level where they actually end up. So what do we got here? MCanning is opening up with 4 adepts. This can get a little bit dicey, man, because with this opening of MCanning, he really doesn't have a whole lot of anti-air. That's going to be problematic when an Oracle shows up in your main base.
Yeah, and I feel like these Stalkers are pressuring a little bit as well, so you get to see the Adepts a little bit, you put the pressure on your opponent's side of the map. You don't even have to worry about the Adepts maybe getting in and dealing damage right now. So it should mean the Oracle gets to go across the map, no issue at all. And yeah, this is definitely concerning for MCanning, even in very early stages.
Yep, he is getting a battery, so that's nice. Whoa, he lets his Adepts trigger that his shade into the main base. A little bit surprised by that. One Adept is going to fall immediately. Now MCanning is going to be in a bit of trouble. Should be triggered, that is, because both Adepts go down and you have to run away with your Stalkers. Yeah, TriGGeR needs to drop a Stasis, by the way. If he activates Pulsar Beam, he's not going to get a whole lot done. Stasis traps, I think those will be very annoying to deal with on the MCanning side.
Yep, Stasis, and then maybe with a double Oracle. If you don't have to use the second Oracle defensively, he can, of course, bring it across the map and then shoot through that shield battery, but he actually decides not to use any energy at all. I don't hate that necessarily, especially if you bring that Oracle back home to help defend against these Adepts, because obviously if the Oracle gets on these Adepts, they are kind of just going to die, as they can't really fight back against that. They are going to shade into the main. The second Oracle here is already working on them. I guess that means the other Oracle should chase the shades down, which is exactly what it will do.
Well, MCanning should still find quite a few probes here. It depends a little bit on the target fire. We get 4, and that's going to be it. I feel like he could have gotten 5 there, but unfortunately fired at a healthy probe. Not too bad though. MCanning is 8 workers ahead at this point, is aware of the double Oracle, so should be able to get units in the correct positions defensively. And it's a more than playable game. Sure, you're down a bit on army supply, But hey, if you're ahead in economy and you don't take any additional damage in the next minute, this is going to be a very fun game for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 9 workers up is pretty big deal, and obviously now he's had plenty of time to prepare against these oracles, so he should not be finding himself caught off guard and defenseless. And it'll be tough for TriGGeR to do anything. He's got a little bit of an army supply lead, but not enough to justify going through into a shield battery or anything along those lines.
Good eye there by TriGGeR. Spots the observer that was out, dropped the revelation. It's really nice with revelation. It's only 25 energy. It's not really a choice. You will always spend 25 energy to kill a unit that costs 75 gas. You can see MCanning maybe a bit nervous there. There's a whole bunch of probes that are just bouncing around between bases, but both bases are saturated anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. The only thing I would have loved to see is go up to 3 bases, because I don't think MCanning had too much to worry about. We are now 6 minutes into a game. That's honestly pretty long to still be on 2 bases.
Yeah, typically in PvP, even you really do just get that set up that little bit faster. You go to 3 base and you go from there. So unless MCanning has something of a plan, but he's also way behind on that blink. So he's going to lose his chance to be aggressive once blink is up. You're late on the 3rd base. I feel like this is TriGGeR just, even though he's down workers, really reading the situation of the game a bit better. Getting away with stuff like this is the kind of thing that will bring him back into the game despite that work count.
Well, MCanning is actually going to skip on blink completely, and then maybe everything makes a little more sense. So it almost feels like he's gearing up to just hit a powerful attack with Zealots, Immortals, maybe a Templar Archives, because I do think that MCanning is going to flow too much gas. If you don't want to warp in Stalkers now, you're not going to be able to spend your gas. So then I can only assume he drops the Templar Archive, and that could work if TriGGeR doesn't pick up on it on time and just kind of sits at home with his Stalkers, doesn't buy time, doesn't keep MCanning at home. MCanning will get a better army, Waddy. The question is just, will he be able to put that army to use and force the fight that he's looking for?
Yeah, we will find out soon as that hallucination setting up. He wants to go and find some information, right? Just wants to keep up to date as to what exactly is happening on the side of TriGGeR. TriGGER sending those couple of oracles around. Of course, if he can really make use of them still, right, they could be fantastic. Not only for Scam, but if you do find a Baron Mineral line, you can kill a bunch of probes very quickly, and that can be a cool way to take a little eco lead on the 3 bases. He still does find himself down a few workers all the way throughout this game. That eco lead is one thing that has really stayed strong for MCanning.
Yep, but TriGGeR was mining a bit more over the last minute because that 3rd Nexus was quite a bit quicker on his side, right? So MCanning had more workers but didn't really have a good place to put them. That kind of all cancels each other out. So far so good for the Ken though. I don't think anything has really gone wrong for him. He found the damage with the adapts. He didn't take any damage against the oracles of his opponent. And now I feel like he really is gearing up for a big and powerful attack. If you don't have blink, you definitely don't want to sit back forever. You don't want to rush into Disruptors either. We know the Can Man loves his Disruptors and put 5 on it, but we saw it yesterday as well. Only Zealots with charge and Disruptors, that doesn't go very well together. I gotta say, I'm very surprised by TriGGeR thinking that he is the one that should be aggressive. He doesn't even have charge, Waddy. What is he doing?
Yeah, I don't like it at all. If you don't have charge, you don't go out on the map as far as I'm concerned after like 6 or 7 minutes in PvP, right? Like, unless you're like hitting like a massive blink stalker timing against your opponent's 3rd. Yeah, so he's kind of moving forward but not committing across. It's dangerous because if MCanning was out here and like grabbed a fight, that's where it goes very wrong for TriGGeR. So this all looks like fine and dandy, but it is very dangerous what he's doing. He's getting away with it for the moment, at least.
Even you can say like, oh, you could recall. Well, you can't really recall because you're not going to recall everything there, and the rest of the army is still stuck. You're going to get swarmed by speedy Zealots. Now, MCanning is dropping a Robo Bay. I don't know how good TriGGeR is in Disruptor Wars, but I don't know if you caught Game 1 last night between TriGGeR and Australia. It was very late for Europeans. I can imagine that you missed it. I actually felt that TriGGeR was in a pretty alright spot, and he was the one heading into Disruptors a bit earlier. But then he just made an attack and he lost the game, and he took a very awkward fight up a ramp. The Oracle's looking for an opening. By the way, TriGGeR does really want to fight here, attacking into the Archons of his opponent. Seems like his Zealots are getting a pretty sweet fight, though. There is a shield battery in the back, but there's also a War Prism for TriGGeR. Does the young Canadian Protoss have enough? I kind of feel like he does.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. He is the one breaking through. That battery's out of energy. Obviously, could never overcharge because that Nexus wasn't finished. Oh, the attempt to stasis around the back was really cute because that could have been a really cool way to perhaps catch some of that army and really overwhelm. He will get a cancel on this fourth base, I think. I mean, MCanning's going to try and fight it once again, so hold that thought, because maybe not. Okay, he does get it because MCanning just backs it up. That's already a good win here from TriGGeR. Just needs to back it up a bit himself. He doesn't need to fight anymore.
Nice little feedback in the main base. Ooh, TriGGeR actually just losing his Oracle. Completely forgot about it after he dropped that second stasis, this time on the high ground. I mean, it's nice that TriGGeR got that base, or at least he got a cancel, he got a couple pilots. Definitely won the fight with the Archons, but it is important for him now, I think, to continue pressing, because MCanning is getting into disruptors, and one disruptor is not that scary. But if MCanning gets 3 or 4 and TriGGeR has 0, then I actually think our Canadian Protoss is still in a lot of trouble, despite the fact that he's up a base.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's definitely not something you want to stay behind on as Stalkers. Beautiful split, to be fair. And he's going to warp in some more units. He's still trying to fight, so he is going to keep on pressing like you want him to, Roddy. But this time, there is a super battery up on that top side, and MCanning is going to push this away with ease.
Yep,
it would
be nice if TriGGeR was able to get a little bit of a reinforcements on the left side too. I mean, TriGGeR is doing great in the main base. He's actually getting on top of a lot of production facilities. There is another disruptor that does connect with a Zealot and a Stalker, but MCanning needs a few more units in his main. MCanning was very safe and sound on the left side. He is going to recall indeed. What is he going to recall? A bit of everything, and that should be good enough to actually clean up most of the units of TriGGeR in the main base. Well done by MCanning. Just very solid hold overall.
Yeah, once he cleans up those units in the main, you can see the supply swing thoroughly back into his favor. As we just have, I say swing, it was always in his favor, but it goes even more so in his favor as he shuts that down. That Prism is somehow going to just about get out of there. Wow, arms. So it's going to survive.
The T-Rex arms of the Archon, they just don't reach.
I'm trying, Roddy. I can get it. He's a boost, man.
He's looking at it.
I focus real hard. Maybe.
TriGGeR is going up to 5 bases, getting that Nexus on the left side now. MCanning has his second Robo up, I believe. No, it's still a Robo. Was a Robo killed? Okay, a Robo was killed. I was like, am I crazy? I know that sometimes I do feel like I'm starting to see things that are not actually happening after casting 4 days of StarCraft in a row. But that was a second Robo. It just got killed off by TriGGeR, so that's a sweet little pick-off. And that should maybe allow him to catch up in the disruptors. Even though I'd like to see him get a second Robo too. It's a fun game, buddy. We asked for a close game. We asked for some chaos and some NA magic. And I think that's what we're getting so far between MCanning and TriGGeR.
I'm not disappointed, Roddy put it that way, as TriGGeR's going to launch another attack here. He has a... Disruptor Nelly helping him out. He has the upgrade advantage, but upgrades don't really matter anywhere near as much as what those disruptor shots will matter. So that's the key part of this. He blinks forward, he'll get rid of one, he'll get rid of 2 shots. The other one wasn't firing right away, and the one that does connect isn't really amazing. He's got MCanning on the run. MCanning should be able to swarm this with reinforcements, but, well, I mean, better fight for TriGGeR than I was expecting, honestly.
Yep, especially because he's still down in supply. He's so aggressive, man. The kid is so aggressive. Now the disruptor shots are very good on the side of MCanning. And MCanning finally takes the solid victory on the left side. I gotta say, TriGGeR's still doing a good job in avoiding some of these Novas. He's got extra units coming in forward. Blink by MCanning, snipes the Prism. And the last disruptor connects with a couple of Zealots too. All right. This is actually, like, yesterday I was like, maybe TriGGeR's going up against Australia and he wants to end it soon, you know, because Australia is obviously such a scary player to face in the ultra late game. But I think that this young Canadian is just hyper aggressive, Marty. He's fighting while a base up, but 30 armies to fly down into the natural of his opponent. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. And he made it look as though it was working too. And if he just slowed it down a bit, it might have done, because the first round of the fight was great.
Yeah.
But that's the strength of the disruptors. If they can just pull back and get a second shot off, well, it just doubles your chances of getting a good connection. And, you know, all you need is 1-2 good connections, and it completely swings a fight around. And that's what we saw happen in the end, as TriGGeR was pushed back, as now MCanning is going to be the one making a play down the left-hand side and trying to maybe get rid of a base of TriGGeR, but it'll be tough to push in, although it would have been even tougher if there's more than one disruptor for TriGGeR still.
Yep, that first shot is too early by TriGGeR. I think you really have to be a bit more patient with that. MCanning has 7 disruptors. There are a couple of DTs coming in here from TriGGeR though, and MCanning has 2 observers, but none of them with his army. So the Dark Templars will save some time. Actually, did some damage to his own Archon, so that allows these DTs to kill an Archon. TriGGeR immediately running to the other side of the map. I have to say, TriGGeR is starting to turn into one of my favorite players, man. He is the Protoss version of Future. There is never a dull moment. All the kid wants to do is just attack, down 30 or 40 supply. He doesn't give it them. It's maybe not always optimal, but it's very fun to watch.
He's like, what's your favorite part of StarCraft? And he's like, fighting. He's like, oh, you like, what part of the game? All parts of the game. He's like, you like my macro? Oh, I gotta do that to fight, but you know, I mostly just live to fight. He does not stop. I mean, it's crazy that MCanning has been the one in such a lead most of the game, right? And he's not initiated a single fight, it feels like. Maybe the odd skirmish here and there as he does push down this left-hand side. Things are starting to turn. So, yeah.
That was a big one.
It
I don't
was.
like that one. Yeah. I actually do think that for TriGGeR, maybe the best idea is not to hover around this high ground thingy too much. See, oh, he does land a shot, and he gets 4 or 5 disruptors there of MCanning. Well, just when I said it's maybe not that good to be at the bottom of those 2 ramps, he lands a great shot, kind of connected with the acceleration zone in the end as well, and that really messes things up. I mean, this is just an awesome game. TriGGeR still down a little bit in supply, but he feels that this is his moment. He needs to be real careful because running into disruptors of your opponent is difficult. Is he still on single road? No, he's on double robot too, so he can also build 2 disruptors at a time. I do like that he's trying to outmaneuver the army though, because you don't want to run head first into a defending Protoss with disruptors.
Oh, he's going to catch a couple disruptors too. He's going to get himself in a good position here if he can use his disruptors to zone out his opponent, but he did not fire for a long time. Somehow his disruptor does not get hit by others. In the end, he mostly just backs away from the position, but I like what he did. He put himself in a dangerous place. There's, DT's on the bottom side. There are
He has an observer nearby, and he has observer speed, dude. That's honestly very solid, because quite often you rely only on cannons, but for TriGGeR to also have an observer nearby is very solid stuff.
Yep, great defense of the DT's bottom side. He's going to find himself back up here. And MCanning has to be careful because obviously if TriGGeR gets into his main, he's going to be able to shut down production. And losing production as that disruptor shot hits his own Archon, helping the Zelds to kill it. If you get in the production, that's way worse than losing this 5th base. So TriGGeR is in the better spot here, I feel like, going into this base trade.
Yeah, careful, TriGGeR, that you don't lose your observers there, because if you lose your observers, MCanning can obviously just warp in DTs. Like, you don't really want to recall if you're MCanning though, right? Like, recalling into an army of your opponent with disruptors in your main base, I don't think that's really an option either. So are we just gonna full on base trade? There's another disruptor that pops there. TriGGeR blinks forward. There's a battery. Oh, MCanning his disruptors getting decent shots. Not as big as I expected. That final one though gets the 3 disruptors off TriGGeR, and now MCanning is getting the shots that he's looking for, and he's even keeping his disruptors alive. Well done. Wow. A couple of batteries, a couple of cannons, and 3 disruptors is apparently all you need to deflect a maxed out Protoss.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like TriGGeR was very reckless with the disruptors already because he was moving forward a lot with them and not really seeming to care too much about what was maybe the danger line in that main base. And a little bit of recklessness allows him kind of to find some fantastic trade outs. Obviously played the situation well also. I much preferred TriGGeR's setup as we set up into this bit of a base trade, but MCanning straight up just played it better and had something of a defense while TriGGeR's had very little. I mean, that's a great disruptor shot, Roddy. Yeah. But it probably doesn't stop MCanning.
No, you're right. We're gonna need 3 more of those, but unfortunately we won't get 3 more of those because TriGGeR doesn't have any disruptors. He is building 1. I don't know where that robo of him is. Okay, it's all the way on the right side. I mean, TriGGeR has actually issues now taking out a couple of cannons and an overcharged battery. That's never a good sign if you're in the middle of a base trade. MCanning handled that so well in his main base. He did a really good job banking up those disruptors, and I feel like he wasn't eager to fire. He was very patient, right? Like, too often you see like, all right, I have units in my main base, they're gonna die anyway, so people just fire and you connect with 2 stalkers. I feel like MCanning did a phenomenal job in waiting for a long time, kept them near the batteries, and when he felt like the moment was right, that's when he fired those Novas forward and really pretty much won him the game.
Yeah, it was fantastic stuff, as at this point TriGGeR just has 21 army supply, and I don't think that's gonna cut it, Roddy, as That's a cute disruptor shot for sure, but it still just isn't gonna. I mean, he can barely even break through a cannon or two right now. And that will be his problem as GG is typed. And TriGGeR was playing from behind kind of from the start. Made a very competitive game out of it as well. But just couldn't quite get the final touches to it in any of the fights. As sometimes it felt like his over-aggressiveness actually helped him, only to backfire moments later as then he overstepped the advantage he then maybe created.
Yep. That was that one key moment where you exactly said that the first part of the fight really went quite well for him, but then he just chased a little bit too far. There was a battery again for MCanning to fall back to, and that's when MCanning was able to land a couple of additional Novas. But we can also go back to the moment where TriGGeR was technically on 4 bases, MCanning was on 3. I like the idea of continuing to be aggressive, but I feel like the way that he split up his army, where it was pure Zealot Archon on the left, and then all the Stalkers in the main, it just didn't quite work out. Because if you have an army of pure Zealot Archon, and you're fighting, let's say, a couple of Zealots, an Immortal, and an Archon, if there is a battery and there is an overcharge, you just can't fight. Because all your units deal damage over time. You don't have that one-shot potential. You don't have Stalkers to get in range of a battery. If you click your Zealots on that battery, your Zealots are going to run around the army and they will all die. So I feel like being aggressive there is okay, but I think the way that he split up his army, it just did not quite work out for him.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that as well. Head on into game number 2. I do feel like I liked a lot of what TriGGeR did in terms of setting up for the game, though, in general, right? Like the faster expansion on the 3rd base and so on. I felt like that part of the game was one where TriGGeR felt like he understood it maybe just a little bit better. He seemed to know he could get to that 3rd base more easily and so on. So I kind of liked how he set up a lot, just wasn't quite enough to offset some of the disadvantages he had otherwise.
There was a little mistake in the beginning of the game as well, but there were a lot of things happening, so I didn't really have time to talk about it. But obviously, Adept Shades are very funny. Either you keep them out with a building, or you have your own Adepts, and then you shade defensively, because the shades of your opponent cannot go through your shades. But TriGGeR actually shaded his Adepts a bit too early. MCanning waited, then the Adept shaded up, and then obviously shaded on cooldown, and that's when MCanning... My camera got blurry because my hand was too close. But then the Adepts of TriGGeR actually just shaded through because TriGGeR couldn't activate his own shade anymore. And that is what allowed the Adepts to get in the first place. Because if those Adepts don't get in and MCanning doesn't kill 5 probes there, I also think that TriGGeR just has an easier time transitioning into the mid game.
Well, let's see what happens for game number 2, as in the bottom left-hand side, down 1 map. It is TriGGeR.
He stormed off after he lost that first game. Maybe to get some water just to cool down, maybe a bit frustrated with how things went. In the top right side, we're looking at the main base of the man who had a phenomenal run in the DreamHack Masters Fall 2020. Can he do that again in 2021? This is MCanning.
I feel like we interviewed MCanning like 5 times that week in the group stages or something because he just kept winning. And it was just the most hype storyline we'd had in a long time.
People are loving it, mate. USA, USA, USA. Now, TriGGeR here in game 2 is going for the low ground pylon and the low ground gateway. MCanning so far is still on a single gate, but there is his second gate. And I kind of wonder, what is MCanning's game plan once he scouts something like this? I don't know MCanning as a crazy, cheesy one-base Protoss, right? I'm sure he has a couple of builds that he busts out once in a while, but I don't see him do that kind of stuff very often. But you also can just ignore it. Like, if you're just gonna go, 2 gate, make 2 units, and then you expand, but meanwhile your opponent gets an early expand up, you just fall pretty far behind economically. So I'm really curious to see what MCanning is gonna do here.
Yeah. I'm intrigued as to what the response will be. And it's one of the fun things about PvP, as we initially just go for that block. But to be fair, this is something which we've seen people deal with, right? You know, when you try and do this one get expand, it became the very popular choice to try and block it and so on, and people really learned how to play around it and what to invest into otherwise, so that shouldn't be a major issue for TriGGeR. And MCanning actually cancels the pylon, so he's going to let TriGGeR put this Nexus down.
Almost loses his probe. It's very low on HP. I actually think this probe will go down, especially with a chrono boost on Zealot, no, it will not go down. Stalker not quite out yet, so MCanning is going to be able to get this probe home. But the moment this probe leaves, TriGGeR immediately drops the Stargate. How's the scouting for TriGGeR on the other side of the map? That's actually decent because he saw the Stalker and the Sentry. And I don't think anyone is worried about getting one base all in if you see that your opponent opens up with a Sentry.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a big gas investment, so it doesn't really add anything to a one base all in. Like a force field on the ramp much later on is maybe okay, but that would be the only thing you'd usually see out of it. So yeah, very good point. And we do just see MCanning dropping a nice quick robo facility.
Now that I think about it, I actually love it. Imagine you open up Stalker Sentry, but then you just 4-gate behind it, and then you just force it out whatever unit they have, and your opponent's gonna be like, "What the hell? You just one base on me while opening over the Sentry?" I'm like, well, yeah, it's just a 200 IQ big brain move. TriGGeR is actually very confident that none of that is happening, so he's sending out 2 Stalkers and a Zealot. This is a very awkward little hit squad. Warp Gate is not quite done yet. That pylon on the low ground could be in a bit of trouble because with a Stalker and 2 Sentries, I don't think you can actually keep this alive. Oh, I like the hallucination, man. That's really quite cool.
Yep, all of that damage is just kind of wasted on hallucinations.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's actually a big deal. He basically almost killed 2 hallucinations and nothing else. Oh, he
That's
got
the
the cancel.
battery. Yep.
Yeah, kills 1 hallucination, chases for another.
It's really smart.
Ooh,
Or-
that's a killer.
Okay. Stasis trap!
Oh!
Yes, he does kill the stasis. Can he save the pylon still on the low ground? That's kind of the big question. Seems like the answer is yes. Love that hallucination, man, because without that hallucination, he loses the pylon on the low ground, and then it just all becomes a little bit awkward later on. No! Trigger! What is that misclick, matey?
Oh, I don't even know why they would be heading that far up in that direction at all. So big misclick there, and that's going to be a Stalker down. Second Oracle rallies to that right-hand side, Roddy. So we are going to be having double Oracle ready for the main base if you can find an opening. But obviously at this point, MCanning should be fairly well prepared.
I think what he thought he had selected was his second Oracle. That's the only thing that I can think of, right? He wanted that second Oracle to join up with the first Oracle, and he clicked towards the right side, and the Stalkers were like, oh, we can actually go there, but what we can do is run into the main base of our opponent.
Makes a lot of sense, actually. So going to cancel that battery. 4 probes went down, so TriGGeR does take a worker lead in this game by 7, and he is going to be on towards that faster blink. But of course, this time MCanning's not playing a Twilight Council, he's playing that Robo. So for MCanning, it's more so about the Immortals and getting that Immortal count up a little bit so you can deal with the Blink Stalkers. Yeah, TriGGeR will get more map control, but you're going to have the strongest standing army in a fight as long as you don't give the Blink Stalkers too much control over the fights.
This looks like a really good start for TriGGeR. Like, the only problem is indeed that Forge, right? Like, MCanning's +1 is halfway done. And I guess you can say, yeah, 1 Immortal out, but I actually really prefer the setup that TriGGeR is currently working with. And he's actually going to have a lot of potential with his units too. Don't forget that the Oracles will be able to force MCanning to leave a lot of units in his main base and his natural. And that will allow the Stalkers of TriGGeR to just run to the other side of the map. A 4 HP Oracle survives. And I don't know if MCanning can save this Nexus. I know Stalkers don't have the craziest DPS, but the answer is no, Wardy. Wow, this is some really solid stuff coming out of the young Canadian.
Yep, that Nexus getting picked off right there, and this is going to keep MCanning back and in some trouble. Trying to use a hallucination once again, making sure that maybe TriGGeR is a little bit less confident about poking forward and trying to find some further damage. Otherwise, it has just been a bit of a bad time for MCanning. He's been struggling, and it feels as though TriGGeR is going to take most of the control. Something that can switch that control over, though, would be the Dark Shrine and the DTs. That's a really good way to just switch momentum big time, and even if TriGGeR has a bit of a lead, but he isn't prepared for DTs, everything can backfire in that moment. So I like that choice from MCanning.
Oh, he wants to get the Immortal. Overcharge is going to try to keep the Immortal alive, and it does keep the Immortal alive, but I don't think TriGGeR really lost anything there either. Maybe 1 Stalker, but that's about it. Yeah, I mean, you have to do something, right? I always hate criticizing, like, oh, I don't like this Dark Shrine right now. And it's like, well, Roddy, what would you like that MCanning would do? And I don't think there is anything that I'm like, yes, that's the comeback potential. So then you may as well indeed add in a Dark Shrine. What you can do is maybe force out a few extra observers and a couple of defensive cannons, which then could give you the time to stabilize again on 3 bases. And you can always use the Dark Shrine for an emergency Archon as well if you feel like you need it. So I guess it's okay, right? It feels like you have to choose between all the evils, and this is the least evil one.
Yeah, no, it's whatever he does is kind of like he goes Robobay now behind this, so as he gets up to 3 base, he will start to think about disruptors, which I like as well. Just, I mean, the thing is, none of it's meant to look good right now when you're so far behind. So we'll see what he can do with it. He's got to try and make some plays, and the ball is in his court for doing that. So we'll see what he comes up with.
Yep. Oh, one of the Dark Templars actually runs into the army, so this should... I don't know if TriGGeR saw it. By the looks of it, he didn't quite see it. Now, there is a Dark Templar of MCanning just casually running into the main base. Now, an Oracle just went down too. TriGGeR doesn't have that much detection. One observer at home. And there's a DT in his main base that's going to slice up his workers. It seems like TriGGeR just wants to go ahead and end this game. And I do think that he has the right amount of units to do so, right? As long as these Telos can just get on top of these Immortals. It's a clumsy fight if I've ever seen one, Wadi, but I do think it's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, he just has so much power in this compared to his opponent. And yeah, clumsy, definitely. The Immortals are recalling away there at the end. This one DT is going to get cleaned up as well. And that means that TriGGeR will just continue to retake the setup as long as he can deal with these DTs here. But he has no energy. Okay, he does have the energy just from the Oracle. You don't need a lot nowadays. He is going to get the Archon as they try to morph to save themselves for a little bit. Okay, well, that was pretty much MCanning's only chance to really start turning this around.
Yep. Maybe if MCanning had like 2 extra batteries there, then there is actually a chance that maybe he does hold, because one Oracle got picked off, the Observer died, you have a DT dealing some damage on the other side of the map, and the force fields really were good. It's just that MCanning's army did not have enough firepower to stay around for a long time and actually make their way through all these zealots. Maybe sometimes, even if you don't have Resonating Glaives, a couple of Adepts are actually not bad, because they do deal a lot of damage against Zealots, especially if the Zealots are being force fielded out.
A Disruptor is not going to hit for now, and that's one of the lifelines that MCanning is somewhat reliant on here as well. And now that that's not connected, it's just another problem for MCanning. As he runs out of options here, more or less. It is becoming tougher and tougher for him. As TriGGeR just holds out, keeps him on 2 bases. I mean, obviously there's Disruptors at least, but they need some amazing connections and multiple as well. One alone, I don't think does it.
No, I feel like you can see that every fiber in TriGGeR's body just wants to fight. But he's like, I really shouldn't. It's like, should I hold a couple probes? He's like, I guess. I mean, well, 3 bases against 2. I'm about to get 4 bases against 2. On the other hand, I can also understand if he is like a tiny bit concerned that his opponent gets 4 or 5 Disruptors, and then he might not be able to win the fight that he's looking for. First Disruptor does get picked off though. The second one gets a good shot, but that's not going to be enough for MCanning. An Archon and an overcharged battery though, Wadi. I believe 50 does fly down, but MCanning does not. And it is TriGGeR who ties up the score. Just a really fun, competitive best of 3 between these two.
I appreciate your passion going into the last fight, Roddy, but it was maybe better to stay for game number 3, you know?
Fine, but I saw an Archon and an overcharged battery, okay? And I've been watching that the Muslim stream, and I'm just learning about the power of those batteries. Hero Marina as well. No army supply deficit is big enough for me. If you give me a battery, I'm telling you, there is a chance. Now, like,
I have no
follow-up
to that, man. I mean, the words have been spoken.
No, of course. Like, the game was pretty much over, especially when he got 2 Disruptors and only one of them actually got the shot off. But if he would have just A-moved there into that little choke point, and you would overcharge the Archon, that Archon would actually never die. But then obviously TriGGeR would just disengage. He'd still be okay. Final game, Beckett.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And it's kind of a weird one, right? Because just because it's a mirror matchup doesn't mean Beckett doesn't have its issues. This map is so small that I am pretty concerned about what could happen early game. Running units across super quickly and so on could definitely cause some mayhem. So that's what I'm watching out for in the first couple minutes, Roddy. I'm not sure about you.
I think 3 gates are really strong on this map. Like, if anyone thinks they can just get away with like, oh, let's make 2 units and drop an expand, or even a 1 gate fast expand, like, it's always possible if the aggressor messes up. But I think this is a very powerful map to just open up 3 gate, or even the 4 Stalker opening that you don't see very often. And I think kind of sucks. I don't think it sucks that hard on Beckett. Anyway, this has to be a nerve-wracking moment for these two, a very important one in their tournament run. In the top right side, we're looking at the main base of everyone's favorite Proto streamer. It is the one and only MCanning.
And down in the bottom left, tying it up, it's TriGGeR.
Party.
Hello.
He's going one gate, fast expand on the low ground on Beckett.
Yeah. You should have listened to your analysis about this half a minute ago, Roddy.
I mean, he couldn't. There's a 3-minute delay on the stream. That's honestly quite wild. And like I said in the previous game, I don't know MCanning as someone who sees this and is like, wait, what is... TriGGeR is actually taking double gas. Is he faking it? And is he actually... No. I was like, yo? Is he gonna Void Ray Rush? Are you kidding me? Is this... What is this? This must be Void Race, right?
Yeah, you're going to drop a Stargate on the other side and just go all out aggression. I like that a lot more than putting a Nexus down.
This is actually pretty sick. And if you're MCanning, I have to admit, I wouldn't be thinking about this. And the problem for MCanning as well, guys, is that you want to prevent this Nexus from going down, so you're not actually scouting the gases very early. MCanning's like, oh, I'm doing a pretty good job and so far making sure that he can't expand. Well, TriGGeR doesn't want to expand. Oh, man. This is actually going to get gnarly. Imagine if MCanning opens up with 2 adapts. I think it's just game over.
Yeah, because then he just has absolutely nothing for a while.
He's scouting Waddy
now. Yeah.
Yep. Immediately sending out a probe, but it's too late to build a Zealot. It is going to be double Stalker, and I do think that's the correct unit choice. But yeah, what do you do now? Can you really prevent these batteries from going up? TriGGeR is also going to get some units to the other side of the map. Let's not forget about that. A Zealot can just be annoying. An Adept could still shade into the main base. This is just going to be a good old clamp. I actually think the best thing that maybe MCanning could do, maybe not defend on the edge. Maybe just try to defend a bit further away. Or indeed, you go for the low ground. He's going to go for his own defensive Stargate. I love it, Marty. This is NA, baby. It's StarCraft. Let's go.
The only thing I don't like about not defending on the edge would be that his gateway pylon is very close to the edge anyway, right? So maybe if you feel like you lose the edge, you lose the gateway pylon, then you lose gates. That obviously wouldn't be good, but I don't disagree. It's going to be scary trying to deal with the edges. Now we have this Adept going to run up into the main base as well, and it's just going to cause a bit of chaos, right? Stalkers have to run to deal with it. Going to lose a probe or two, and this is just so annoying. Workers you do not want to be losing, just going to make it more and more difficult to defend, although he missed a few targets there, but he still gets it in the end, that final probe.
Oh, and MCanning's battery is just going to die immediately. So the first battery for MCanning does absolutely nothing. MCanning does have his... Oh, TriGGeR was also a bit nervous there. Massive supply block body. He's chrono boosting the Stargate, but that Void Ray ain't popping.
Wow.
And the main Void has been out for quite some time. There are just a couple of big arrows happening on both sides, but we can get behind it because I understand it. High pressure scenario, the guys are nervous. Wow, MCanning really dodged the bullet there by TriGGeR supply blocking himself.
This actually, he should have 2 Void Rays to 1 right now, but he's just stuck on 1. And now, Void Rays are always going to be even in numbers, which gives MCanning a real good chance. But I think that might be the most significant supply block I've seen in a long time.
100%. Yeah, that was big. TriGGeR could be a Void Ray and a bit more even, right? It could be like 1.2 Void Rays ahead. So he would always, and then maybe in some moments even have a very big lead. Well, now MCanning does have another possibility. And I like his second battery a lot more. It's just a bit more defensive. So TriGGeR is really going to have to expose his Void. Is there a world, Wardy, where, okay, you don't just drop a Nexus. You have to be very careful if you're MCanning. But you drop a Fleet Beacon. I think a Fleet Beacon wouldn't be the worst choice. Oh, MCanning has to be so careful.
Wow, those Stalkers have to be careful too. Yeah, they got to go running as well. Those batteries get drained off of fights like that.
Mate,
and the
prismatic massive supply block, Wardy. Look at this story, mate. 37, 39, Void Ray queued up. Oh.
TriGGeR making a lot of mistakes. Pressure getting to him, perhaps. Something which I felt like he dealt with very well last season, as we're going to see a Void Ray going down. MCanning probably could have continued for a second. Now he turns around for it. A little bit of a stir from MCanning. Probably didn't quite believe the advantage he just created. Yep. But yeah, this is obviously continuing to go in MCanning's favor.
Oh my god, my heart just skipped a beat there. I think you're totally right. I think MCanning can just straight up win the fight there because it's not like his prismatic alignment was about to run out. TriGGeR should have such a big lead in Void Race. Instead, he's even in Void Race and technically down because one Void Race so low on HP. I honestly think that was MCanning's golden ticket to straight up winning this game. TriGGeR derping a little bit with his stalkers on the low ground. My goodness, I'm just nervous for both of them. This is a clown fiesta.
Yeah, I mean, those Void Rays being low from TriGGeR is scary because the moment you just lose the shields on one of them, it's dead, right? And that can happen in an instant with prismatic alignment, so it's a dangerous game. They're both dancing around for the moment. I see a battery at the front here taking a couple of nibbles, and we do have other stalkers around the bottom looking to try and join in. I mean, TriGGeR's going to start losing this position, and if you lose that position, it's going to be bad. He's going to go for a Void Ray. He'll get it, and MCanning decides to turn and fight. It's one Void Ray each, I believe, so far. Second goes down for TriGGeR, though, as MCanning... I mean, MCanning's biggest issue is that he is still on just one base, while TriGGeR expanded behind all of it. Something to keep in mind.
And MCanning has no idea that the expand is happening. TriGGeR is done building Void Rays, by the way. He's going to shade a couple of adepts. Like, he's been done with that for a while. He went up to 2 gateways. These adepts just casually making their way into the main, and they actually find quite a few probe kills. Yeah, it seems like TriGGeR is satisfied with the position that he found himself in. Losing 2 pylons and a gateway does sting a little bit. He's just going to get 2 extra gateways at home. Yeah, why the hell not? It does seem like it's just getting better and better for TriGGeR. Yeah, needs to be careful against battery overcharge, that's for sure. Can MCanning get like a lot of Void Rays and just run to the other side of the map and somehow win with Void Rays?
I mean, honestly, the Void Ray count is still going to be scary, right? If you can just get them all powered up and they fight away from batteries or anything, they just overwhelm. They will zap things down very quickly. Enough to win the game off one push? Probably not. As he starts to lose probes in the main base, the Oracle is a beautiful play, and it really does just do so much. 5, 6 workers, no mining in the main base at all. Okay, you're going to kill off all this stuff on the low ground, MCanning, but you are just not mining for this entire duration. And of course, TriGGeR now gets to see this double Stargate in the main and realize, well, I know exactly what you could do here if you wanted to, and yeah, I mean, just feels like TriGGeR is full of information, has an army to defend at home. We are on our way to a TriGGeR 2-1, Roddy. I think you got your prediction.
Yep, unless he takes a fight away from battery overcharge, but he ain't going to do that. TriGGeR gets 2 Void Rays, gets number 3, and with that he will get the very important W.